How can a man support a woman during this time in a relationship?
The things in our 20s that we just coped with and we went along with will rear their ugly heads in perimenopause because we've ignored our nervous systems for 20 years.
You've lost your estrogen, you've lost your boom, right? I think that's a load of shit.
They don't want to sit with their own mind. To put someone in a bath with no distractions, we're not sitting in quiet. It's not silent because this ain't silent. If this was silent, there'd be no problem, right? But this is going. So boredom is often, we're frightened, we're in fear of our own thoughts, of our own self-talk.
Hello. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. We've got Sarah on, the amazing Anita Tomecki, human behavior expert. I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself. I used to work with her many moons ago and it was amazing then, and she's doing amazing things. Sarah, tell us, who the hell are you?
Well, when I met Candice, I was a young personal trainer, but I've evolved since then. I'm a naturopath. I live on the Central Coast. I'm a herbalist and nutritionist. I'm a mum. I'm also in my mid-40s. So
Yeah.
And that's me.
It's a good time. And because you have all that wisdom and knowledge, what we're talking about today is what's on everybody's lips. Perimenopause, menopause, aging, look, I know everyone's talking about like how to prepare, how to it's this big thing. I've been talking about it with Anita and saying like, well, I'm preparing as it, like I'm in my queendom era, and that's the energy I'm bringing. Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a big bad thing that's happening. And we're also, what we want to talk about as well today is how partners can support their person in a relationship in this stage of life.
Yeah, it's not talked about enough.
That's actually not talked about. Yeah, I haven't seen any. I think it's important because if you're in a relationship, two people are going on this journey, one more intensely for sure. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting space. So firstly, I'm going to start with a couple questions.
Go for it.
When we're talking about perimenopause, what is the difference between perimenopause and menopause? I know that seems basic, but I don't know. I'm still a bit clueless.
No, that's a really good question because there is a lot of buzz out there. So perimenopause are the years before perimenopause, you still have your period, right? You still have a cycle, but they're the 5 to 10 years before menopause where your hormones start to change. And like you said, it's not a scary thing. There's just change. And they call it the second puberty because it's the same fluctuating hormones as puberty. It just lasts a little bit longer. And menopause is definitely when you have not had your period for a year. That's what's textbook. When your period completely goes and when estrogen is completely declined and there's no more period for a year, that is menopause. But just because you have no more period doesn't mean there's no more symptoms.
Okay, interesting.
Perimenopause is definitely the ride before, we stop menarche, we stop bleeding. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's when we then crawl into a hole and die, right? According to society.
In menopause or perimenopause?
Menopause.
Oh, look,
that's the societal standards. Well, you've lost your estrogen, you've lost your vavoom, right? I think that's a load of shit. And I really love conversations that change that. So when it comes,
sorry to stop you. I call it like we have less resilience, but we also have less of a mask and we are more capable of saying no, and we're more capable of being that queen that you just mentioned and shining through that. And we have a lot more wisdom. So it's not a time to be scared and that we're declining in estrogen and we don't exist anymore and we're not beautiful. It's actually, I was just reading an article this morning about in your 40s, if you're going to live to 80, if you think about it, we still have another 40 years to be in our prime. And all this constant marketing around that it's doomsday needs to stop.
We can thrive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you said there we are less resilient. So can you just say what you mean by resilient? What are you
Of
talking
course.
about?
So I think when I think about myself, when Candice and I met as a personal trainer, I could push myself to the limit and, you know, maybe have a sleep in on a Saturday and go again, you know, because our hormones are quite youthful and we are more resilient at that time. And we say yes to a lot of things in our 20s. But in our 30s
Mm,
and 40s, it our nervous system will show up differently in relation to our hormones, and the way we show up in the world will have a interplay with our hormones, and we become more aware of it. And when I say less resilient, it's like, no, your body can't handle that type of training you used to do. Your body can't handle the friendships that used to drain you. Your hormones can't handle all the things you're saying yes to because you don't even want to. So it's like the less resilient part isn't a negative. It's actually a positive because we're stepping into this
right.
power role of going, I can't do that anymore. Why did I say yes all these years when
Mm,
my body's telling me I can't? And I think
mm,
with clients in clinic, that's one thing that I'm teaching like deeply is what is this doing to your nervous system when you skip a
mm.
meal, when you overly train? Oh, well, my period's turning up heavy. It's like, is that perimenopause or is that you ignoring your needs? You
Well,
know,
this
so
is what I was
Wow.
going to ask you as well, because
Wow.
as I, spend time with women, I was back in the UK for a little while, and I was seeing a lot of friends there using HRT more and all the rest of it. And in my mind, I was when I was hearing their symptoms weren't any different to it could be anything. I've got anxiety, I've got brain fog, but what I was seeing is they're still in the fast-paced manicness that they
yes,
were when they were younger. And I get that are we using HRT in order to just cope and survive in the fast-paced way that we always have been? Is this a time, as you say, is it a time to actually slow down so we're not necessarily needing to fill ourselves with chemical? Because there are a lot of tools. Like when I hear some of these symptoms, I'm like, well, I knew you when you were in your 20s and 30s and you had high anxiety and you were a bit
yeah.
chaotic. So you had
And you
brain
were
fog. You
still a
were
lunatic.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like so and this is where I say it with complete compassion, because it is that thing of like we are so, conditioned to believe, now we've got perimenopause, which wasn't a word that I ever heard before. So now we're fixating on that and there's something wrong with us. And now we need
Yeah.
to do this or any bit of anything in the nervous system that's happening. I had fucking high anxiety in my 30s, a lot more than I do in my 40s. And I've done a lot
Mm.
of inner work. And I'm not saying this like, everyone should do this, but I see the difference in that. And, the way that we're conditioned is to go down the routes of HRT and the rest of it because we're not educated in any other way, right? So it's just,
That's right.
seeing that. What are the real symptoms of perimenopause that aren't things that we would have had and I get people say heat and things like that. So I kind of get that
But
thing, but some of it.
you made really good points there. The things in our 20s that we just coped with and we went along with will rear their ugly heads in perimenopause because we've
Mm,
ignored our nervous systems for 20 years and we weren't taught or
mm,
given the tools. And so women like yourself who are doing that inner work are able to go through to menopause smooth sailing because you know your nervous system and you know what it can tolerate and what it can't. And it
mm,
cannot tolerate what it did, what you kept ignoring.
yeah.
And the mask will come down. Estrogen going down means our mask comes down. So
Mm,
so our mask comes down and you have to deal with the shit you didn't deal with when you're 20. And you're right,
mm,
HRT is a chemical that is a band-aid solution for this buzzword. But then, and yes, it can help some women, but it won't help unless they're doing that inner work, the nervous system work, nutrition work, and looking after themselves, you know? So many
yeah.
women I start with, they think it's going to be this complicated problem to fix their hormones, but I start with, babe, are you eating your lunch?
Mm.
Mm,
Mm.
And most women, I
Wow.
can tell you, most women when they come to me, they're not eating lunch. And they're wondering why their hormones show up the way they are. And it's like, oh, they start eating lunch and they can sleep better and they're not so moody and they are feeling more energized. Or go figure, you got to eat.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah.
really simple, but it's like, why are we going over here and going, let's get a band-aid solution? To me, it's the same as antibiotics, right? It's
yeah,
band-aiding a
exactly.
problem
Yeah.
without fixing that root cause. And if we're looking at root cause, what's disrupting our hormones as modern day women and mothers is nervous system dysregulation. And
Yeah. And
that comes
this is
from
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
doing the inner work and not
Yeah.
eating properly. And it's actually
Yeah.
really hard to eat properly. It's work.
Yeah. And Sarah, when you say, so what do you mean then by inner work?
Yeah,
What's the
good
regulation
question.
of the nervous system? What do you see as
Yeah.
that?
The thing is, when I'm on a consult with a client, I often say, I can't be the one to say, you need to meditate or you need to do this. It's actually what you know deeply to soothe yourself. We all know it.
Mm.
I feel like we all know it, but we ignore those needs. So for me, it's definitely being in the ocean. It's quiet time. As a mum, I need quiet. Like that sounds like nothing, but it's huge.
Yeah.
It's time outside seeing sunlight, not blue lights.
Yeah.
And we live in an overstimulated world. So it's like the less we can be overstimulated, the better. But each person's nervous system and how they come into that parasympathetic state, like the rest and digest state, that's individual. So I feel like when I first became a naturopath, and if anyone's listening to this, sorry, but I would say like, yeah, go meditate. That will help you. But a lot of people don't resonate with that.
Yeah,
No.
totally. And I
So
No, they
think,
don't.
in the
yeah,
kind of world of work that, we're of our past, it's all of that, because all of that helps to shut off the negative thought, the judgments, even the excitements. That's all the stuff that deregulates the nervous system, right? So all of that stuff points to, as you say, it's finding a way, your own way of calming your mind so that your nervous system then follows on from that. So
yeah.
So can I ask? I mean, I'm like Anita. I feel much calmer in my later years, and
Same.
actually, I told my sister, I was like, yeah, we're going to be having a talk on perimenopause menopause. She's like, should you? I mean, you don't have symptoms. Should you really be part of this conversation? And I was like, yeah, I should. Because I do. Besides having some injuries, I feel good and calmer. But that's the process. That's the work. That's the years of going, hold on, what am I not listening to? What am I not listening to? What am I not listening to within myself? But when I'm overwhelmed, I want to go to the Band-Aid. I want to go take painkillers. I want to have the antibiotics. So for people that are overwhelmed, how can they stop going to the quick fix? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I think it's relearning habits, because we've probably had those habits a long time. So it sounds simple, but it's like I do come back to rituals for yourself. It's like, can you go outside and eat your breakfast in the morning without doing anything else? Especially for the mums with lots of kids around them, you're feeding everyone else, you're getting everyone ready in that chaos in the morning. What's that doing to your nervous system? And then you're probably dropping off your kids to school without eating. So it's like changing the little habits during the day. And, you've seen those memes of like, why are we brushing our teeth like this?
Mm.
Like, can you actually be present in everything you're doing? Why are you throwing things in the dishwasher really quickly? No one's chasing you. But as women, we act like something's chasing us, like we're in a rush all the time, you know?
Yeah. And look, I don't relate to that. I don't think I'm in a rush enough. Some might say I've got, but I used to be. I used to be frantic. I need to work hard and be at that pace. I was talking to a friend this morning, and also she's like, I feel like I should be working and doing more. I'm like, but why? Why is it so
Why?
ingrained into women that we, and men as well, I know men doing this, work ourselves into oblivion until we're at breaking point,
And
until our body, mind, and spirit can't cope?
yeah, and I often hear, like, when I say rest to women, they actually don't know what that is. They don't know what it looks like. They don't even, they can't even, they don't even feel comfortable doing it. Like, go and have a bath. What? I get bored in the bath. It's like,
yeah.
well, you probably need to have a longer bath.
Well, this is it, Sarah. It's like what we're bored. So whenever anyone uses that word bored, I'm digging into that. And boredom is usually they don't want to sit with their own mind. To put someone in a
Exactly.
bath with no distractions, we're not sitting in quiet. It's not silent because this ain't silent. If this was silent, there'd be no problem, right? But this is going. So boredom is often we're frightened. We're in fear of our own thoughts, of our own self-talk. And that's the sad, the sad part that we don't even know that it's that's playing out. So
That's right. And we're not taught to sit with ourselves.
right.
And it's when you ask like what can be done instead of the band-aids, it takes a lot of work to undo all the habits that we're doing, like distracting ourselves from ourselves.
Yeah.
If a woman says to me, I don't like baths, I think, oh, well, in a year, you're going to come back and be like, look, I had an hour bath. Like, that's the goal, to
Yeah.
sit with yourself in silence. That's the greatest nervous system reset. And I also
Yeah.
say, not all people like camping, right? But what does camping do for your circadian rhythm and your nervous system? It gets you out of blue light. It gets you into that circadian state. You're in nature. I often say to people, how do you feel after you camp? How do you feel after you get a massage? That's actually how you should feel every day. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, I never feel like that.
Yeah. It's
I know
crazy.
for when you live in Sydney, when I used to live in Sydney, you get a massage and 2 seconds later you're back in Sydney traffic and your nervous system goes back to where it goes. So it's like
Yeah.
learning how to come back all the time. Yeah.
So I just want to recap that little bit there. When we're talking about these symptoms, the first step is before we go to all the quick fixes is to sit and listen and maybe be honest with ourselves and what we want. If you're not enjoying something, well, then you're not fucking enjoying it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't
Yeah.
fucking go lift weights and throw them around if you're not enjoying it. I don't care what the research says. I don't care because I just think I tell them when I used to coach my clients that you shouldn't be forcing yourself to do things every day. There is that system that go hard, play hard when we're younger, push, the struggle is the goal, the struggle that helps you get through and all that shit. When you're in your 40s, that shit doesn't work.
It doesn't land.
It
No.
doesn't.
And
You know?
I always say to women, how your cycle shows up is a marker of your health for the previous month. So if you
Mm.
feel rocky in your luteal phase and you bleed heavy and it knocks you for 6, what the hell did you do 2 weeks ago? You pushed, or you
Mm.
skipped a meal, or you stayed up late for 5 nights and then you didn't eat breakfast till midday, or you lived on coffee. It's like your women, we're not small men. We have a monthly cycle, not a daily cycle, and we need to really tune in with that.
So Sarah, I've got a
Mm.
question for you there as well. It's so you talk about go heavy, whereas mine does the opposite. Mine goes light. Do you see that as
Yeah.
well? I've never
Yeah.
gone heavy. I've always gone lighter. And for me, even though there's not been any of the symptoms of perimenopause or whatever, the thing that I see is the period getting lighter without
Mm.
all of the anxieties and the brain fogs and the heats and all of that. I've not had any of that, but I see that the body is
Something
aging
changing.
and that there's just change happening.
Yeah.
And in a way, I kind of see it, and I'm like, if this is what I'm getting away with, and this is it just petering out as the years gone on, then I'm
Mm.
absolutely happy with that. And I acknowledge that I'm hoping that is the work that has been done to to learn to calm myself over the years. So
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to diagnose like a light or heavy period without background, but sometimes the period can shorten or lengthen in this season,
right,
and it
yeah.
very much is to do with whether the body is finding it harder to ovulate, so not enough nutrients, or if there's like an excess amount of estrogen, for example, because we will go high in estrogen before we taper off into menopause.
Yeah. So what would
Interesting.
that look
Okay.
like? So say more. If we go higher into estrogen, what should the period then look like?
It's everyone's going to be different in what their period looks like. But when I
Right.
talk about the estrogen going higher, it's more, this is why the HRT, push is really detrimental in perimenopause, because in perimenopause, our estrogen will look higher in relation to progesterone. And
Mm.
it's the balance of the two that create harmony for women. But estrogen will rise in ovulation and naturally come back down to bleed. And
Okay.
the higher estrogen symptoms can be that heavier bleed, full busts, bloatedness, and that's why it's detrimental to then get estrogen, be taking estrogen, because our estrogen's quite high before it tapers off. But that, without going too long, that's in relation to progesterone. So progesterone gets tanked a lot faster and easier because of cortisol. And that's when it comes back to that nervous system conversation. All the assaults on the nervous system play a role in progesterone production, and therefore the production of progesterone goes down and estrogen in the relevance goes up. It's not really too far up, but it's the ratio. And therefore
Yeah.
we get those estrogen dominant symptoms because the progesterone can't cope with excess cortisol.
Can you
That's
tell us the difference between those two before you progress? Estrogen and progesterone? I'm like, I don't have a clue. So like what's the symptoms of both of those, high or low? Like you told us estrogen, fuller breasts, heavier periods. What's the progesterone do? Look, I can't even say it.
No, that's fine. So we need estrogen. Estrogen gives us plump tissues, healthy skin. It's our anti-aging hormone, but in excess, it can cause, inflammation, bloating, sore boobs, heavy periods.
Right.
Progesterone is a calming hormone. So after we ovulate, when we're mid-cycle, that's when we feel like we can do it all. Like we're stronger at the gym. We feel hungrier. But then when it comes down, they both come down to bleed, yeah? When progesterone's not there, you will feel more anxiety. You will feel like you can't sleep properly, like you won't get that proper REM sleep because the progesterone's rocky. It's our calming hormone that sends us into our bleed, but it's also the hormone that holds babies. So if you're pregnant, your progesterone will rise to hold the baby. So it's really revolutionary what progesterone does, but it's tanked in women of our age who keep pushing, who keep fasting, who think that they are small men. We
Yeah.
really, it's the progesterone that I see just tanking away because we're pushing on those adrenals. Does that make sense?
So what do
Absolutely. I
you mean
mean,
by
even
keep
me now.
fasting?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead,
I was
Anita.
wondering
Go,
what the
go, go.
keep fasting means. What do you mean by fasting? Because I do a lot of fasting. If that's what's
So fasting meaning going without food in the morning.
right. Okay. So you don't recommend that. Interesting.
I don't, especially not in women and not in this stage of life. And I can explain why. If you
Yeah.
follow me, I have a lot of posts on do not fast for women. We're not small men.
Right.
So mostly all the studies on fasting were done on men over 50 roundabout in small trials, so 6 to 8 weeks. And
Wow.
of course it works on men. They have a 1 day rhythm, and most middle-aged men who want to lose weight are eating after dinner. And if they stop eating after dinner and have a longer period, without crap in the morning, they're going to lose weight. But for women at our age, it tells our body, oh, I am stressed. You're not giving me fuel. I'm going to run on adrenaline and cortisol. And
Yeah.
that's when you see, if you progress and keep doing it, you see middleweight holding,
Right.
insomnia, worsening periods, lighter periods too.
Mm,
Yes.
mm.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely have started. I used to not eat breakfast as well. And it's definitely been a game changer that I've gone back to having protein shakes in the morning and filling up. Because I'm not used to doing food, a shake is what's helping, but
Yeah.
also not training my body like I used to. Even my yoga practice, doing those intense Ashtanga flows that I used to do were ridiculous. I mean, and they're fine for that time. I still like a strong flow occasionally, but most of the time I have to go gentle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not that my body's not strong. I still love to lift weights. It's that my mind doesn't want to push through anymore, just like you said.
I love that you're listening to that, That's so amazing. So many women ignore it and push through.
I think it's interesting you say that because I mean, when I fast,
Sorry.
We lost our naturopath. That's all right. Go ahead.
when I fast, I feel really good. And the minute, if there's any sense of me sensing the cortisol rise in my body, because there's an awareness of that, then I will go, okay. So when I say fast, I actually did a few days of fasting and then I'd add some nuts in. So the minute I could feel any arising, it's like I would use the nuts in theory to ground back in. So for me, it's kind of just when fasting, it's watching the cortisol levels in the system. And I actually feel really good. And the minute I maybe not, then I'd have put something in. But so it's interesting. Is it a blanket rule, or can it be, if we're actually, paying attention to ourselves, can it be an individual thing? What do you think?
For me personally, as a practitioner and what I've seen, that's my blanket rule. But you're going to hear a million different reasons why it might be or not. For me, I like to ask these questions of, why do you feel good? Do you feel good because you're actually running on a little bit of cortisol and that does feel good?
I hate that. No. I don't drink coffee. I've never drunk it. I had anxiety to death, so cortisol does not do it for me. For me, it's a calming state. So for me, it's I actually feel very much I had live blood tests done after fast, and they were the cleanest bloods that have been seen, versus when I'm eating more. And even though it looks healthy, there might still be crap pesticides and things like that and all the rest of it. So the cleanest my bloods have ever been is after a fast, after a few days of, and feeling like amazing, like not even heightened state, like in quite a meditative, calm, peaceful, everything's clear and beautiful sort of state. So
I think it has to be taken in context as well, because it sounds like you are very in tune with what you need in your nervous system, and you probably rest around that time. But a lot of women are fasting, still having coffee, and then going to work and working out and really drilling their nervous system, and then wondering why their hormones throw them. So it's like there is a difference.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, absolutely.
And so obviously, I think what I'm getting from this is really, that's okay, Sarah. You're doing well with the mount today.
Oh my God.
That's all right. My phone does that all the time. Yeah, totally fine. What I'm hearing is that's what it is, the self-awareness, listening to yourself, how to listen to yourself, understanding what you need, not always going straight to medical, the quick fix. But someone's going to say, I mean, someone who's not in the holistic space, I like to play devil's advocate, but how do I listen to myself? Like, what the hell is listening to myself?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It depends where someone's at, right? That it can take a few years to plant the seed and have it really blossom and them understand. I have a lot of clients from a few years ago going, you taught me this, but it took a long time. And then I have someone else that just can click overnight. I get it. It's not a one. And I think that's the other thing with this kind of medicine, allopathic, herbal medicine, is that we're so used to quick fixes and we want these quick fixes. And I see women take those quick fixes and still come back to me and still need to do this work. So it's not like it's going to fix everything,
no, you're just prolonging it, really, extending the lifespan of, and the breakthrough takes longer.
That's right. So it's about where they're at, what time they have to put to themselves. And that comes back to self-love as well, even that small education of you have to nourish your body. You can't ovulate without enough nutrients. I told someone the other day, you need to have half a plate of vegetables, for most meals. And they're like, what? So it's starting with the basic things, really.
Basic, absolutely. And so coming on to this topic that is such a huge conversation, but how can a man support a woman during this time in a relationship?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is tuning into to her cycle. So knowing when she ovulates and when she's going to bleed, because we're not a diurnal. We don't have a diurnal rhythm like them. We have that monthly cycle, and we are going to feel really energetic and good mid-cycle, and it is normal to feel more tired, not wanting to socialize as much before our period, and maybe even cranky at their chewing, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And how
so
can so I love that because you just said knowing their cycle. I was speaking to someone the other day and they're like, oh yeah, my partner has my cycle on their phone. And I was like, that is so considerate.
it's amazing.
But it's like the first. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's caring, to actually care. You know, when someone's even whether it's go nuts, get angry, be emotional, whatever. I think that's really nice. I'm a person that just isolates myself generally. So, you know, I find that interesting. But I think that's really nice. Actually, guys understand they should have the cycle on their phone. And what's another, like, in this time? So when we talk about like holding space and supporting a woman, maybe how can a man communicate to their partner that they need to take some time out for themselves or something like that? Because if a man goes up to a woman and says, hey, you know what, you look like you need some relaxation, go relax, or you know what, they're going to get knocked out. They're going to get knocked out. So what is the safe way?
You know, like, I think for me, it's going to be different for each woman, but I can give you my examples. For me, it would be him taking over, you know, the meals, or, you know, organizing dinner. So that wasn't another thing for me to organize. Making sure there's food, you know, because in that space, you feel like eating shitty food, let's be honest. And if there's a meal prepared for you, you're more likely to eat it than to eat the crap, but you don't feel like making it yourself, let's be honest. So that's a big one for me. Another one would be more quiet. So I live with a guitarist and a 4-year-old. My house is very loud. So he knows that, you know, I just look at him and he's like, okay, mummy needs quiet.
Yeah. Nice.
And then just not, I don't know how all men are, but maybe they also don't understand the extra need to rest. And to say, and like you said, you go very inward, so do I. So it's about looking at that calendar. And you know, I'll have people at the start of the month go, are you free this date? And I say no, because I know that I'm good now, but in 3 weeks I won't feel like it. So it's honoring that and letting your partner know that that's your red space on your calendar, and we're not doing anything overly social that weekend, or try to, you know.
That's what I was going to ask. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's having the conversation and not feeling guilty about it. Because because a lot of women, maybe we were modeled. Like, I didn't even know when my mum had her period when I was young. And we were modeled that, like, I don't know about you, but we were modeled like she just keeps going, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really remember my mum going, I've got my period, I'm resting. And that's really important to me to teach my daughter and for my husband to see that I've got my period, I'm resting, and communicating that and being okay with it, because a lot of women are like, oh, I feel bad. I don't feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say that about kids, because I think also a lot of women this age have teenage children. Mine are grown, so we really can have lots of open conversations. We always have anyway. I've been that type of parent, but I know someone else I was speaking to, and he was like, well, you know, my son doesn't need to know about all that. And I was like, well, actually they do.
Yeah.
You know, they need to know how to support their mom, because this is going to make them such a fuller, expanded human being, being able to have that awareness early. So
That's a good point. Educating your sons it's not just about educating women, it's about educating all humans that we have a cycle and we need to honor it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I've had women say, "Oh, I was crying in the corner. I didn't want my kids to see." And it's like, well, maybe you should let them see. This is part of life. It's part of women's cycle. Like, it's
Yeah.
important. It's important for them to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And then I've also heard, I've been hearing a lot about this topic lately, um, is someone saying, well, that person is just using, oh, it's perimenopause, this excuse for their behavior. I've had a couple of probably, I don't think they were malicious comments. I just think they were not informed, not aware.
Mm.
Because they were saying, oh, this person's just using that as an excuse. It's perimenopause. Just that person's like cracking it and da 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 da. And I think this person's having a lot of reactions. Yes. The parties watching, perhaps men watching or sons watching, going, well, like they're just using it as an excuse.
Mm.
How does one deal with that?
I think that comes back down to education, it's this, and that's why I say second puberty, because women in history have been told we're hysteric, we're
Hysterical.
hysterical.
That's right.
And so we need to normalize that the brain changes and we don't, and that's when I come back to that less resilient, because we can't deal with this overstimulated world when our hormones are fluctuating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, the conversation needs to be had that women aren't hysterical. We've just not been heard or seen or understood.
Oh, that's so good. We're not hysterical. We just haven't been heard or seen for 25 years, 30 years. And then you get to 40s and then it's like, I want to scream because I want people to hear me. Again, I went through this like 10 plus years ago. So I understand it. But I know a lot of women that are here now.
Or you can have the little girl that was too sensitive, That's the women in their 40s now going through these changes, and the outside world can think this is perimenopause, this is puberty. Oh, she's sensitive. It's like, fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't heard, I wasn't understood, and you didn't teach me how to regulate my nervous system. So now, us women are getting together and we're fighting for each other and we're learning to recalibrate that nervous system that was never, taught in the first place.
Yeah.
100%. My needs aren't met. My needs aren't met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be honest and know your needs aren't met. There's a level of absolute fucking honesty that has to come through where you take your mask off and go, my needs are not met. And these are the things that I no longer want or can do or am happy with.
Yeah.
And maybe you can put that down to my hormones or cycle or whatever, but this is my truth. Do you want to stand by me and with me and support me, or are we filtering out?
Yeah. And that comes down to not only like relationships with your partners, but also relationships woman to woman, any relationship. There's things you just don't stand for anymore in this time of life because our nervous system says no and we've ignored it for so long. So it comes back to that umbrella term. It's everywhere at the moment. And so many women checking in with me, check my hormones. Is it perimenopause? And when I dive deep, it's not. It's that their needs aren't being met.
Oh.
Yeah, we do a whole profile female hormones, which I will state most of the hormone profile that you'll go to what won't do progesterone, which is hilarious because you do need to look at progesterone and you need to look at it at certain days. So day 2 of the cycle is a really good time to see where your estrogen is at. And day 21 is good to see where your progesterone is at. And a lot of GPs or menopause clinics, they'll just test the hormones and not really know what they're looking at because they really don't tell you anything at a certain part of the cycle. You have to look at it, at that peak time and at the start of the bleed.
That's really interesting. Wow.
And we're looking at the ratio. So we're looking at the ratio between FSH and LH, which is how you ovulate and if you're ovulating well. And then we look at the ratio between progesterone and estrogen. And most of the time, I see women with higher estrogen to progesterone because of the nervous system stress. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So I just want to summarize. Anita, do you have any final questions? This topic is so big, like we could go for hours,
It's
actually.
huge. Yeah. I've loved this conversation. So good.
Yeah. I mean, I have a million more questions. We might have to do a part 2 at some point. But I
Yeah.
think touching on the basics of really, if you're coming into this stage of your life, Sarah, you've given me the answer. It's listening to yourself, being self-aware that the discombobulation, dysregulation is in response to your needs not being met for a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And being able to sit with yourself and being able to give yourself rituals, being able to communicate with your family members, partners, and children. I think that children one is a really big one. I'm saying this because I've heard some things lately that make me think that we're not bringing up our boys to value the sacredness of what it is to give life and have a womb space and be a woman.
Yeah.
But that's a
Yeah.
whole other topic.
Yes.
It's another podcast. Yeah, Anita, any final questions or
Thanks,
so
ladies. So
insightful?
nice to connect with
Sarah,
you.
do you have any other final things to say?
Look after your nervous systems, ladies. Yeah. And
Yeah.
nourish yourself. Nourish yourself. You got to eat.
Yeah.
You can't eat leftovers.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's so true. That's scary. I eat leftovers all the time. Okay, thank you. Again, we have to do a part 2 because I think there's just so much more to explore. That was just so informative for me personally.
Maybe we could do like if you have questions, we could try and answer it next time.
Yes, that's a great idea, actually. Yes, thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Love and light.
Bye.